The intro to my story. So, a couple years ago in eighth grade, this is actually the beginning. I just made the basketball team, and I really wasn't disciplined at that time. So I had bad habits such as overeating, being lazy, and etc. So during the time where we started to get into play, like doing drills at practices, going to games, um, we would run these drills where I couldn't keep up with the team, and that restricted me from play because my coach didn't think that I could be able to keep up with the team during the game, and that was true. And although that was true, it and I knew that it was true. I really wanted to participate. So I knew I had to do something about it because I didn't want to stay like this forever. Because basketball to me at that time was like a really big part of my life. So I really didn't. I see why I should not be able to play. So I think that it was a big thing for me to get better at it and go ahead and do it. So let's get into what I experienced at the time. So at that time, I was overweight. I was about 230 pounds. I was about 5'10", and that was pretty tall for me then. But to give you like a good understanding. For someone who's 6'3", 230 pounds, that's still very overweight. So you can see at this point, it's really, really bad. So I was pre-diabetic, and some of the symptoms I was experiencing was not being able to catch my breath, especially when I go running for even short distances and walking for long distances. So the other one was increased thirst, and I believe that that was due to excess of blood sugar. Um, and don't quote me on this because I'm not a doctor, but I believe that I did some research on it. It is excess blood sugar, but again, don't trust me on that. So essentially, I let's get into what I did for taking action. So um, I researched a lot on how I could improve myself, and I was trying to get right in the head because I didn't really believe in myself at the time. So I think it's 80% mental and then 20% action to me, because you can do as much as you want. You can dream, you can think, and you can do the research. That's 80% to me, but 20% is taking the action. Because for me, it was all mental. Most of it was mental because obviously you cannot achieve success without doing any action. So that's why I said 20% is action. So first, I think if you're trying to achieve anything, your desire for success should be more than the fear in taking action. In doing that, that was for me. I wanted to achieve the success in reducing my weight and being able to run more and be able to catch my breath more so that I can play with my team. And my desire for that success was much more than my fear of doing that action. The fear for me was um, I would hate running. I was not fond of running. I actually despised it. I think that it was a waste of my time. But right now, I think that running is keeps my mental aspect very very strong because when I'm running, I really don't. I think that it reflects back to when I was in eighth grade. I always reflect when I'm running. That's what I do, um, and keeps me good mentally for me. So as my mental health contributes to my mental health, eating well also, and I want to say this very loud and clearly. I'm still not perfect to this day. I still have cheat days. I still have a lot of stuff I used to have, but I have it more and so moderation. And moderation to me was having a separate days on a couple days for me. I would go all out and I eat a lot, but then the next couple months I restart and refresh. So I think that if you're trying to go like especially for these type of journeys, I think you should take a break sometimes. That allows you to refresh, and that allows you to keep going. Because I think that in order for someone to be successful, failure is needed. Failure is a part of the process. Failure is not a separate thing from success. You need failure to learn. So a principle that I like to keep in my life is um, win or learn. People call it win or lose, but for me, if I lose or where people say lose, I think it's a big learning experience as to how I can improve the next time. Like if I think that failure is actually very needed. Some people think that, especially in our society, I think that people think that failure should be despised, and it's overlooked because every failure has a lesson in it. So for me, I think it's very essential. And again, yes, took the action. And when I took the action, I didn't really think much about what my fear was. I didn't really care about my fear because all I really cared about was achieving success, because my desire was far larger than my fear. So yeah, I hope you learned something from what I said today. Thank you.
All right, so my name is Kai Dorn, and I'm here to talk to you guys about eating disorder recovery and my personal wellness journey and sort of how they kind of tie together. So, a bit about me before I begin. I'm a high school senior at Menlo Atherton High School, and I'm going to college next year. I haven't really decided what my major is going to be, or sorry, I haven't decided which college I'm going to, but my major is going to be neuroscience and philosophy double major. I volunteer for a youth mental health organization called Safe Space. And there I'm the Pride Committee lead, which is an LGBTQ plus affinity group. I'm also the lead for my school. So I work a lot with my school's administration to make positive changes at our school, like within policy, within sort of action and events to help like better promote student mental health. And I'm also in our community committee, which is sort of like a subcommittee that works a lot with like other organizations such as CWC and does a lot of outreach. And at my school, I'm in band journalism, and I'm the president of our school's Gender and Sexualities Alliance, which is an activism group dedicated to sort of like advocacy for the LGBTQ plus community, as well as providing support and education to our members. And then in my free time, I like art, I like hanging out with my friends, I like reading, writing, all that good stuff. So yeah, and a bit about Safe Space, which is the organization I volunteer for. And Safe Space has really inspired me to give like talks such as these and really talk about my experiences with mental health and wellness. So Safe Space is a youth mental health nonprofit, and we operate on a very for youth by youth model, which is to say like our members are mostly youth, and we serve youth in our community. So it's very like tailored to what each community needs by people who know what that community is facing. And our goals is like seeking to eradicate the stigma around mental or reduce the stigma around mental health, because obviously it's going to be a long journey to completely get rid of it, but we try to reduce it in any way that we can, making mental health services more accessible and just to start the conversation around mental health. And so what we do that, we do a lot of outreach to local schools and community organizations. We raise awareness about like mental health and available resources there and like in other organizations. We offer a lot of workshops taught by our members, like crisis intervention training, about peer support, about empathetic listening, etc. And we also work with school administration to change or start the conversation around mental health, and then changing school policy to better accommodate students with mental health challenges. So it's kind of a lot of different things, but yeah, it all sort of comes together in Safe Space, which is amazing. And sort of like a note before I get into my actual presentation is just I made a very conscious decision not to include like pictures of me in my eating disorder, and like to not put in any sort of what people would call statistics, such as my lowest weight, my lowest BMI, or like how little I ate while restricting, because I believe like these are sort of measurements that people with eating disorders use to compare themselves to others. And historically, they're used to validate or invalidate other people's experiences. And I think that people really need to move past this element of comparison. So I'm trying to just sort of do my part by not really mentioning that information. So also that's not really a question I'm willing to answer. And yeah, so my illness, I struggle with anorexia. And for those who don't know, anorexia is restrictive eating disorder in which sort of like sufferers deliberately eat very little and choose to exercise a little too much. And the food restriction happens for quite a variety of reasons. It can be out of like this extreme desire to control one's body, or just like an extreme desire for control in general. Another common one is like people want to feel emotionally numb. And for me personally, I didn't eat because I felt like I didn't deserve to live. And that was something just triggered by a lot of things in my life. And I also wanted the emotional numbing that my eating disorder provided me, because I have like a comorbid mood disorder and anxiety disorder. So like for me, my eating disorder served to kind of block some of that out. Though I kind of like had instances of restriction throughout my childhood and like attempts at weight loss when I was quite young, I started sort of restricting more. Like I would say my eating disorder formally began when I was 13, and I was hospitalized and diagnosed when I was 15. Um, and for a while, I was actually in and out of both like the hospital and treatment for a lot of heart issues and health issues just relating to malnutrition, um, and just sort of like caught up in a relapse cycle. And like it was a very dark time in my life because I didn't really want to get better. I didn't want wellness. I didn't want recovery because I just didn't think there was more to life other than just misery. And it was a very hopeless point in my life. And I just didn't really see the point of trying to get better. Um, so it was not really a great time. But so what changed? Like what sort of got me from like this low point, this rock bottom for me, to like actually recovering and like speaking at events such as these? Well, um, I was what people call like a revolving door patient, which is to say like you are like you leave treatment, like you walk out the revolving door and then you like go right back into the revolving door and you're in again. And I realized like I had a moment where I kind of realized like, oh, I am so tired of this. Like this has been my life for too long and it's limiting everything I can do and everything I want to do in my life. So it was just a very miserable, limited way to live. And I was sort of like, I got to a point where I was kind of tired of like relapse and I didn't really want to spend the rest of my life like that. And then I realized like I could not um, do everything I wanted to do with my eating disorder because like I've always been a very ambitious person. I have a lot of dreams of like success. I want to be a doctor. I want to make a positive impact on the world. I want to leave some sort of legacy behind. And I realized I really could not do that with an eating disorder and spending so much time in treatment and resisting treatment. It was just too much. So I kind of decided that I wanted a future and I had to commit to that really hard. And for me, I found a lot of purpose in like volunteering because it was just personal meaning. It was something to motivate myself, it was something to live for. So I found a lot of purpose in volunteering and like my own education because I like learning, I like being a student and just, yeah, my relationships. Like I didn't want to like make the people who love me like worried all the time. So I realized then that I should commit to recovery and to wellness. So after you commit to like recovery, I wish I could say like you're done, it's over, you're well. Unfortunately, like committing is not enough. You have to make conscious choices that like promote that decision and that actively carry your recovery forward. There are a lot of concrete action and changes you need to make to your life to get well. It's not just as simple as waking up one day and deciding you're going to do it. It's not enough to decide. You have to go do it that day and then the next day and every day. So it's really about that consistency and it's really about doing what you need to do to get well. Um, and like everyone's journey to recovery and wellness looks different. Not everyone will go to like formalized treatment, but for me, I needed a lot of like professional support. I was in residential, which was like a 24/7 sort of like in care for long-term care for eating disorders. And then I was also in a step down program, PHP and IOP. And beyond that, like I just needed support from like a lot of my friends and from some of my family members. And those were really what carried me through. Um, so just like as a note, like not everyone goes to like formal treatment because a lot of people don't have access to it. But I was very fortunate to be able to get that professional support. And I don't think I would have been able to do it without this sort of the help I got. Um, so a lot of my recovery has just been deciding time and time again that I do want to get better and that I do want to be well. Um, Part of committing to wellness is sort of deciding that you deserve to live your best possible life. And recovery is just an absolutely nonlinear process. Like you're going to have slip ups, you're going to have bad days, you're going to go back sometimes. But that doesn't mean you can't keep moving forward because it takes a lot of like recovery takes a lot of time and patience. And you have to keep going even though you've made a mistake or you've fallen backwards somewhat. So they can like and like lapses and slips, they're so frustrating, especially when you're working so hard for something. But like you have to remember that you're not a failure if you slip up. You just have to get right back on track and keep going. And just because I made one mistake or bad decision, it didn't mean I was back to the start. So you just really have to remember that like one mistake doesn't mean it's over. You have to keep going even though like you messed up. So I just want to emphasize like wellness is a conscious choice that you need to keep choosing. It's really a commitment that you need to prioritize. And it's a promise to yourself that you deserve better than a life with illness and unwellness. So where I am now, I'll be the first to acknowledge that I'm definitely still struggling, but at least now I'm struggling forward. I'm still working on doing and just being better to myself and for myself. Pandemic was really hard for me to cope with because I was struggling with isolation, some issues in my family, just a really stressful situation overall. And I did end up relapsing during that time. But like that wasn't an excuse to completely give up and go back to square one. I had to sort of keep moving forward with my recovery and seek out help again sort of get to where I want to be. I had to go back to treatment and I made the decision to do so because I want to prioritize my wellness. And my goal for that is like, I just want to be able to have a full college experience that's not ruined by being ill. I really did like make that decision because I believe I have a future and that I believe that it's worth living. And I really needed to be well to enjoy it. And I'm actually hopeful about my future now, which is something I never could have imagined a couple years ago. And I truly do believe that like recovery and wellness are possible for everyone. And then the next slide, just like it's just me being happy in recovery. Like I just wanted to share because like I feel like there's light at the end of the tunnel and speak and like I just want to show sort of what the other side looks like because I have been on the other side. And like for me, I was speaking at a premiere for a mental health film that I directed over one summer, and then I did fundraisers with Safe Space to raise money for causes that I care about by selling my art, which I love art, so it was kind of perfect. And I went to the National Student Leadership Conference, and I just hang out with my friends, and those are all things that just like they would have not been possible. I truly believe. Like you can make the like some people have made the point that you could probably do all this like while restricting like what does food have to do with it but for me personally like maybe not like maybe I could have done it but I wouldn't have enjoyed those things as much as I did if I were ill because illness is like they just leave you with no energy to enjoy life. So this idea that like I could maybe do everything with my eating disorder, that was something I really struggled with because I wanted to stay in it, but then I kind of was like, but I can do it, maybe not, but I wouldn't have like it. I think like the fact like whether or not you can do it is less important than would it be meaningful to you if you were struggling like while you're struggling so much and refusing to get better. Like would that have had any meaning? Um, and I don't think I would have had the energy. I don't think I would have had the drive or like the emotion or motivation to do it. So it just illnesses like they really do leave you with nothing that's good. It leaves you with no energy to enjoy life, which is why getting well is just so essential. And then continued because why not? So yeah, wellness tips, kind of just basically what I've learned, and like some ideas of like what you can do to get from point A to point B. Um, because like I would love to be able to give you a concrete step-to-step guide, but that's not really possible because everyone's wellness journey will look different. And you really have like don't really you can't really draw comparisons. Every situation and circumstances are so unique. And like your wellness journey is going to look different from mine. Maybe it's going to look different from Arian's. It's going to look different from the person sitting next to you, or like really just anyone, because everyone's situation and circumstances and like if you're ill, like it's so different. And really the question is like, what do you need to do to be well? Um, and that's what you need to ask yourself. And another thing that I sort of learned is like energy has to go somewhere. A lot of people have like a self-destructive energy, and you need to start putting that away from the things that are harming you, such as like for me, it was my eating disorder, but it can be like overeating for some people, it can be self-harm, it can be substance use. You need to take energy away from those things and put it towards things that'll help you. And I believe that self-destructive energy can be redirected. And for me, I directed that into my art, I redirected it into my volunteer work and community service, and I put all that energy into my education so that I could have a future. Yeah. And like that energy will always be there. It's just how you choose to use it. And then other thing is like you have to remember why you're doing this because wellness journeys aren't easy. They take a lot of time and energy and it's a huge commitment. So you have to remember why you made the choice in the first place and hold on to what inspired you to do this for yourself. And then of course, like it's hard to be emotionally well if you aren't taking care of your body, if you aren't eating enough, if you aren't like getting outside sometimes, if you're not resting, if you're not doing those things, you can't really like respect and take care of yourself and your body. And that's really essential because it's hard to be emotionally well in a physically ill body. And then it's also all right to admit that you might need a little more help because no one is alone in this. You are just not alone in this. Being well, recovery is difficult. Being well is difficult, especially in a global pandemic. Like doing all these things and getting better, it's really hard. And no one said you have to like suffer through this alone. So, there's no shame in reaching out to help to get well. And if you could have like just one takeaway from my story and from my journey is that like help is out there and it's just a matter of like sort of seeking it and yeah, taking action for yourself. because like life is worth it and there's more to this than just illness, and everyone needs wellness. So yeah, thank you to CWC for letting me speak here. I really enjoyed this opportunity. And of course, thank you for Safe Space for like sort of inspiring me to do things like this.